Eastern Kentucky may be in the stabilization phase after last month's deadly floods, but a family from Breathitt County says their living situation is far from stable.
They're not able to live in their home, but turns out getting approved for benefits from FEMA has proven to be harder than they thought. As Evening Edition's Mike Valenti explains, that may have something to do with their housing arrangement.
As she points out the damage to her home in Breathitt County, Isabella Fugit tries to navigate the ground caked in mud.
It is so slick, guys.
When the water came, it wreaked havoc on the first floor and forced Fugit, her husband, and their 3 kids to flee.
I remember just like crying, getting stuff and putting it in garbage bags, what I thought that we could save or whatever, get out quickly.
Now, living in a camper on her mother-in-law's property, Fugit is trying to navigate the FEMA benefits process.
It's still hard when you don't know what your next step is.
The family has been approved for $10,000 in FEMA assistance for other needs, but it's housing assistance that has so far eluded them. You see, several years ago, Fugit and her husband entered into a rent-to-own arrangement with her mother-in-law, Wanda Noble, who owns their house on her property. They pay Noble, and she makes the mortgage payment. When the lien is paid off, the house will be deeded to Fugit and her husband, making them the owners.
When you go down to these tents, they'll tell you one thing, but then when you send it in and talk to somebody, they tell you something different.
Fugit says FEMA reps told her this arrangement should not preclude them from receiving housing assistance, but both their original application and appeal have been denied, with the note that ownership had not been verified.
I feel like there's loopholes around everything you try to do.
So why couldn't Fugit's mother-in-law just apply for FEMA benefits from the outset, since after all, she is the listed owner of this home? That's what we were wondering, and I did ask Fugit that, and she said it never occurred to her because this always felt like their home. Plus, she learned later on that if her mother-in-law had applied, FEMA would have had to verify her occupancy. And again, it wasn't her mother-in-law who lived here. It was Fugit and her family.
It's really been a struggle, especially when you don't have a house. Like when you don't have nowhere to go, but you're still having to find ways to run around and get this printed off, fax this in, get this signed by someone. It's hard.
Earlier this month, the couple wrote a letter that explained their situation, signed by Fugit's husband and Noble, and notarized by the Breathitt County Circuit Clerk. But that didn't work. And now, if Noble were to apply, that would constitute a duplicate application, deeming them ineligible for benefits once again.
It's been tiring and difficult.
A FEMA media relations specialist spoke with me and Fugit on the phone, and he told her to keep trying and encouraged her to bring a copy of the original deed to a disaster recovery center. And as the governor announced yesterday, staff at these centers can now approve claims on site. That gives Fugit just an ounce of hope. In Breathitt County, Mike Valenti, Evening Edition.